We're going to do a little bit of an instructional video on how to take apart a Springfield XD model. Now this will work with the regular XDs and the Mod2s. The XDSs are a bit different, so I'm not going to guarantee that this is going to work. First thing we want to do here, as anytime we're cleaning our guns, we're disassembling, we want to make sure that the guns are empty. So we lock the slide to the rear, we do our 3-point safety check, we look away to reset the visual cortex, and we do that again. I know this gun is empty, so in order to take this down, of course, I take the takedown lever up and put it in the 12 o'clock position. Go ahead and close the slide, and I need to press the trigger, and that will allow the slide to come off from the frame. Now I'm going to be working on the slide in a different video here. We're going to just concentrate on the frame. Now, things that I need. I will need a armorer's hammer, nothing super huge. Some sort of bench block or a way for you to tap pins out. A roll of electrical tape works as well. Don't have to get this. I will put the tools that I use, I will put links to them in the description. I do have a specific punch set here, so I don't use generic punches. I ended up getting a set of punches from Springer Precision. They are specifically made for the XD. One of the best tools here is actually this punch, and I think it's a 3/32 punch. Yeah, it's a 3/32 punch, but standard 3/32 punches that you buy are usually a little bit too short. This 3/32 punch actually allows you to take out the striker retaining pin in the slide. I know we were talking about the frame, but it's one of the reasons why I actually like this. These are all the punches and the roll pin starter that you will need. All right, so you also want a little bit of, you may want some gun grease. You don't have to, but this gun is a duty gun, has been shot, so what I'll end up doing here is I'll strip this down as far as I'm comfortable taking it, and then I won't show you the cleaning process because you should know how to clean stuff. If not, there's lots of other videos online that tell you how to clean stuff. We won't be removing the ambidextrous safety. I will show you or point out things where you want to check. We won't be taking the grip safety entirely off because you can clean around the grip safety without totally removing the grip safety, and it's a real big pain to actually put back in. So we'll be leaving that particular pin alone. All right, so let's go ahead, and first thing we want to do is go ahead and get the takedown lever out. All I have to do is actually put pressure right here, push it through the frame of the gun while I'm twisting on the takedown lever, and that'll actually, I can actually go ahead and pull that out and all the way through. Now what it's sticking on is a little piece of spring. Not sure if you can see that inside the hole there, but it's right there. All right, we'll see that when we take out the block here. Now, once that's out, I've got to work on these two pins. Now these two pins are going to go, if I'm holding the gun, they're going to go from left to right. Now I'm not going to push them all the way up because they are held in on this side by a couple of little not clamps, but and they're not pins either. I can't remember what they're called, but they're little C-shaped. They're spring steel, and they go on there. They're really hard to put on, and they're hard to get through if you take the pins all the way out. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to use one of our punches here. This particular punch is a 5/32, and I'm just going to give those a tap to start them. This side as well. Doesn't really matter which side you start with. You just want to make sure that you have clearance. And I'm going to push until I hear one click. I don't want to push past that click. So again, I'm also pushing through here, and that's it. All right, now that should allow me to remove my locking block here. and that pin, your slide stop or slide lock or slide release lever is going to come out. And what we were looking at earlier is that this little spring right here. This spring will actually holds the takedown lever in place, and your slide lock lever actually works off this spring as well. If this pops out, remember the orientation. Best advice that I was given was that every time you start taking pieces out, take a picture of it before you take pieces out so you know how it goes back in. Okay, so these parts will all need to get cleaned. As we start looking into the frame, you'll see a lot of dirty stuff in here. I don't know if you can see me, maybe put a flashlight on it, but you can see all that stuff in there, how dirty that is. So take a look at the mag release. Mag release, this is where it catches clean in here. This is pretty difficult to take out and actually put back in, at least for my skill set. Right, so we want to clean all this space right here. What I want to do is take my finger and I want to actually feel this piece right here. I want to make sure that there are no rough spots, that it's still nice and smooth. All right, now once these two pins are out to this point, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take my trigger out. Now the trigger basically hooks in right here. All right, so all I need to do is push the trigger in, and I can pop the trigger out. All right, this is all gunked up. You can see all the carbon here, so we're gonna have to clean that. The trigger just slides off. All right, now notice that spring. Your trigger spring, do not lose this. All right, that'll need to get cleaned up for me as well. Having a little parts bin or a parts cup or something like that to hold all these parts is a good idea. Now I got to work on these pieces back here. Heard this piece referred to as the buzzard or the chicken, and when we take that out, you'll actually see what that looks like. So what I do with this is the pin is right there. All right, so we use, you can use your 3/32 here, that'll fit. You can also use this 3/32, that'll fit as well. So be very careful. This spring has a tendency to shoot out this way and shoot downwards, depending on how you have your hand. This pin, there's no access to it on this side. So once we get the buzzard head or the chicken head out, we're gonna have to actually get that pushed over. So a really small flathead screwdriver, a knife. I use the pistol gear extractor tool that we use to take out the extractor on the slide. I use that to actually push things over. So let's go ahead and start getting these pieces all taken out. So I'm going to actually just start pushing through. Now before I take this out, I need to make sure that I cover all of this. You see how my thumb's coming over? I want that covered, so if the spring pops, it hits my thumb and drops down in here. So all I do is going to push that pin all the way through. All right, and I felt that spring pop out and hit my thumb. Hopefully it didn't shoot out forward. And there's that spring. I'm gonna hang on to that spring. All right, there's the pin. I'm gonna clean that up. And I'm just gonna start wiggling parts. So there's they call it the chicken head. I think it looks like a buzzard. So anyway, I don't remember the official name for that piece, but there you go. And then you have the sear piece here. All right, we're gonna get that wiggled out or forward. If it doesn't drop out, then we're going to actually have to move this pin here. Okay, so like I said, I use the extractor tool from Pistol Gear. I get that jammed in there. and trying to do where the hole is, and I just give that a push, right, until I can get stuff to drop out. All right, give this more of a push, get that off, get the extractor part of the rail off, or the ejector, sorry, this is the ejector piece, and then that should drop out. Now, things that I want to clean, is all this stuff in here. This area right here is going to build up a lot of carbon as well. If we go down inside here, I don't know if you can see that in there, but there's a lot of dirt and lint. You'll actually see here the you'll see the spring for the grip safety, and you'll see that's the pin that holds everything in. So you'll notice I can actually get brushes and stuff in here, pull out those pieces of lint that you see, get all that cleaned up without having to take this piece out. I also want to make sure I get a brush inside there to pull the lint out there. Any of the skin cells that end up, you know, getting stuck in here. Sometimes they end up in the grip zone letters, which is kind of gross. But this is from outside waistband carry, by the way. This is not from someone having this shoved down their pants. This is total outside waistband carry with a suit coat over top. So that's what I would do to actually just start getting stuff cleaned up out of there. You see, just running that little Q-tip in there, I started pulling some more pieces out of it. But you can see there's lots of stuff in there. So that's about as far as I take down this pistol. I don't really remove this pin at all. Again, that's just me. I make sure I get it flush. All right. And then I'll clean this, and then I'll go through the assembly process, which takes a little bit of patience, and we'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. All my parts are cleaned up, so we're going to go ahead and reassemble the frame here. So we're actually going to start from the back end here, back in this area, and we want to take this pin, and I'm just going to feed it through by hand just enough so that, if you could see that there, it sticks out just a little bit. All right, so that's sticking out just a little bit. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get this piece to hang on it. So this part is facing to the right. We're just going to hang that piece right on that pin. And I may have to push that pin just a little bit further in to get it to do that. If you have thin fingers, this is an easy job. If you got big fat fingers like mine, a little more difficult. So we have this spring, we have your sear spring extractor. What I end up doing here, because you have to depress the grip safety in order for get these parts to line up, what I end up doing here is I use one of these 3 30-second punches, and I can feed it through the other side. You guys see that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do a little balancing act here. Now, you don't have to do it this way. This is just something that I found is a bit easier for me. Some people build everything from this side over. I'm not a huge fan of that, just because this part is difficult to get in. All right, so extractor, or my ejector, sorry. Ejector is going to line up something like this. Put that in, get it to hang. Okay. I've got that to hang. try to get these two pieces together. So this faces the back of the gun. Spring goes in there. This part will stick up for now. Ugh. It's all so painful. So I'm going to try to get this part to go in first. Then I'll get that. Then I'll try to get my pin punch through. So I'm going to have to move some of these parts around a little bit. All right, so you can see I've gotten that through. Now I've got to hang the spring. So bring this out a little bit. Clean the lint off that spring. There we go. Get that spring there. And to get that to sit. Now, I've got to push this pin all the way through. Without dropping the spring, of course. So we'll try that again. Spring. All right, I'll let that drop out again. My apologies, this is a part that I have an issue with. I think this is probably the hardest part of putting the frame back together, is getting this spring back in. All right. So, this is all being held in. I now need to get this pin to go through. And it's got to hold everything in place. There we go. And I should be able to, if everything's lined up, I should be able to just push this with my finger and get it through. I'll take this, just make sure that this is flush, because that's where the slide rides there. So I should be able to do all this by hand, all right? So I can give that just a little bit more. So there's a divot there. See that little divot there? It's equal on both sides. All right. So now this pin right here, top of this spring right here is actually supposed to be underneath that. So I'll press this through a little bit more. Okay, and I like to get it just so this side is just past the frame, and this should give me enough to get this piece underneath. This is where a small flathead screwdriver or a pick would be useful. But once I get this this spring underneath this pin, push that till it's flush. All right, so that's the part of the firing mechanism here. Trigger safety still works. I can actually see it moving inside there. All right. So next thing that needs to go in is the trigger. So my trigger currently is in pieces. This spring basically hooks up underneath, and this would go here. That spring sits right in that little slot there. So make sure that's in the slot. Trigger through. This hook hooks up underneath here. All right. Now you see this wear point right here. This is the part that deactivates the striker block, or one of the safeties here. We see that it is rubbing a little bit here. So I personally like to use a tiny bit of gun grease because it's sticky and doesn't really move on that wear part there. So I'm wiping off the excess here. And then right across the top surface here, where there's a little bit of wear. I like to do that on the sear as well. But this basically just hooks in, and you press the trigger in and it drops in. So you take a look at that again. The trigger just hooks underneath here. This cutout goes right there. Right there, sorry, the camera work there. All right, so this pin is going to go through here. All right, but before we do that, we put our block back in. All right, 2 pins should line up with the pinholes. All right, now your slide stop or slide release lever should fit down inside this slot right here. Right here. All right. If it's having trouble getting in that far, there may be an issue with the spring. So we'll pull that up a little bit, and we'll actually drop this in first, and then you can jiggle that until it goes in. Sometimes it goes in after you put the block in. Sometimes it only goes in if you move the block out of the way, which moves the spring out of the way. All right. At this point, if everything is aligned correctly, and I can look inside the hole here to make sure that the pins are lined up, I should be able to go ahead and start tapping that pin in. And my trigger is not exactly lined up correctly, so I'm going to hold the trigger to the rear and kind of jiggle that around a little bit. All right. If my front's lined up, I can also start to go ahead and tap that in. So we know the front is aligned. All right. And we just have to get the trigger. And sometimes, just like with Glocks, the slide stop or slide release lever might be in the way and misaligned with the hole. So we move that a little bit and see if we can give that a tap. All right. Not quite yet. And I'm just studying how much daylight I have or movement I have in here. Oops. Okay, we're back. Got to remember that the trigger has got to line up right here below the spring. That's where the pin lines up. So I've got that pin started. Should just tap through now. First we get the front pin that taps through real easy. Now we're got to make sure that our slide lock / side stop is lined up, so we can get that to pound its way through here. Okay, not quite lined up. Let's try that. There we go. All right. So getting that trigger pin in is kind of a pain. Not as bad as putting this piece back together here, but that is how you disassemble and reassemble your XD frame. We do need to put this back in. So basically, takedown lever, we just kind of twist it, push it in till we get it to click in place, and then we see that it is now in and ready to go. So that is how you take the XD frame apart. If you like what you're seeing, please like and subscribe to the channel. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I will do a separate video on how to take down the slide into its itty bitty pieces, because this gun, you can see all the lint that's in here, definitely needs to be cleaned, so I'll do that as well. But let's go ahead and get this frame video up online for you all to see, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments or direct message me. That's fine, and hope you all stay safe, and we'll see you out on the range.